What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner, and joining me in the Smith Center's very own publisher, Andrew Jones, right across the way from me, across that Smith Center court, right over there. And AJ, we just saw Carolina beat Virginia 81-66 on the court right here in front of us. Before we dive into this one, though, AJ, I do want to mention the milestones we're trying to hit right now. We are well on our way, but we still got some work to do. We're trying to hit 20,000 subscribers on YouTube, 40,000 followers on Twitter, and 12,000 followers on Facebook. And AJ, chime in real quick on the Facebook, because I know the numbers over there have been picking up relatively quickly. What can you add on that?
Well, we finally started running reels, so that's a lot. I'm swamped, so it's hard to get to a lot of stuff, but we finally got to the reels, bring in more people, get a lot more feedback from people, and that's kind of what we want. That's why we open the comments on YouTube. We want to know what more people think, and not just so much about our stuff, but just what more people think. We want to know what the massive Carolina fans think, as well as our subscribers that pay $8.33 a month to be on our website, TarHeelIllustrated.com. So you and I talked about this a lot over the last couple of years, and I decided that I just want to know what more and more people think. The more people we can get feedback from and just get their takes on the team, if it's not feedback about us, but feedback about the team, the better we can do our job. So I like to be more inclusive with all this stuff, and that's really what this is. So we want to get more people on Twitter so we have more comments, or X. Some people want us to call it X now. And we want to get more people on Facebook, and obviously, what's the other YouTube? Yes, YouTube. But Facebook's been taken off because of the reels. And there's a lot of new people that are commenting over there, so that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, links in the description below. Go ahead and head on over to Twitter and Facebook, and then obviously you can subscribe below. But AJ, let's dive into this one, man. Again, another relatively convincing win from North Carolina. I think where we need to start here is another good start for North Carolina, propelling this team to a victory. Carolina has never trailed in their 3 consecutive wins over Syracuse, NC State, and UVA. First time since the 2018-19 season that happened. It was funny because we were talking about it before we hopped on here, and we went back and we looked at the Syracuse game, and we were like, okay, it wasn't that Carolina jumped out to a massive lead over Syracuse. I think they were up by 10 with about 5 minutes left in that one, in the first half of that one. But it was a game in which Carolina, again, never trailed. Fast forward to State, completely dominated State, never trailed in that game. Fast forward to today against Virginia, it's kind of the same old thing where Carolina got out to that extremely hot start. I think Virginia had, 2 points in the first 8 minutes or so of the game. Really struggled early on in that one. And Carolina, again, carried that momentum into the rest of the game and the rest of the performance. So I think that's where we got to start, man, because we've seen this team start bad. That's stuff we've talked about this season many a times. Hasn't been the case in the last 3 games. And let me preface this, AJ, because I know people are going to be all over Twitter and all over the YouTube comments below, because I've already seen it. I know Syracuse, State, and UVA all stink. I'm going to use that word, AJ, but still, you got to beat the competition in front of you. And I think it is impressive, no matter how you look at it. Carolina did not trail in any 3 of those games. So talk to me about the start from Carolina, because it kind of seems simple, right? You start a game well, and it probably will bleed into the rest of the performance. But again, it's just not something we've seen a lot from this team this season.
I don't mind being repetitive sometimes if it's necessary. And I think just don't disregard the opponents, but disregard leaning on so heavily on, well, they just stink. Because it's the approach that Carolina is taking now that gives what's happened the last 3 games more value to me than if they just would have won 3 games and been hot from 3 and then the score gets kind of skewed because they're hitting a bunch of threes, and maybe they haven't played as well, but hitting threes can mask a lot of stuff. It's how they've approached it. It's how they've gone about it. It's the noise of the team, which has gone up. You and I we talked about it the other day. I talked about with Bryant the other night about how they've been noisier and chattier during warmups. That's why I go down to the court. Every game, no matter where it is, I'll be there Monday night, Tallahassee. I'll go down to the court and I get a feel for the team. And they've been chattier the last few days. Hubert said that they've been more talkative. They've been louder. They were loud in the shoot around this morning as well. And I think what we're seeing is that carries over into the start of games. That wasn't the case before. They didn't start games with a high level of juice and energy at times, because that just wasn't who they were at the time. They're doing that now. I think that they feel good collectively about themselves. I think that they really understand. They're going to tell you that playing big is what they need to do. I mean, some of them have said it on the record. They'll say it anyway. Look, this is what they need to be. Drake needs to be a 3. Ian needs to be a 2, sometimes a 3. They need to have 2 bigs out there. They need to be able to contest stuff around the rim, which they did in the first half. They should have had like 4 or 5 more blocks than they were credited for. They need to be this. They take the court now thinking, you know what? Not only do we have a chance to win a game, we have a chance to win a game playing properly and playing well. And I just think that spirit, if you will, is there when the games start. And because of that, they're alert, their heads are up. If a bad play happens, they're sprinting back on defense early a little bit better. The slow starts, I'm not going to say they're gone because they could still occur moving forward, but they figured something out. They have found something that works, and it reveals itself early in these last 2 games. Yes, NC State's terrible, although they beat Wake today. Virginia is not good, but this would be a better team if Tony Bennett was a coach. There are good players on the floor for Virginia. Every team in the country would take Isaac McNeely. Trust me, they would take Edwards as well. There are good players there, and they still understand how to defend. And Carolina was just carving them up. It didn't look like UVA. Carolina was carving them up. And that's because of the way the Tar Heels played. And they got more stuff from Jay Witt. We're going to talk about him in a few minutes as well. But the explosiveness early is new. So even if you're a great team, the 2009 team, which is the best Carolina team I've covered. 98 rivaled it, 12 was close. But that team got better as the season went on. It was about this time of year they started saying, okay, we're going to play defense better.
Yeah.
And they started playing defense better. You have to get better as the year goes on, and part of getting better is changing. Whether it's altering rotations, whether it's altering starting lineups, whether it's press. I thought they should have pressed maybe a little bit more because they did go through some lethargic periods. But, hey, the coach was right. They won by 15. They pressed 1 time, and that was UVA's only bucket the first 8 minutes of the game. They got a bucket against it. So I think seeing a team change and win should give fans watching optimism, even the ones that have shoveled dirt on them already. Look, you should have reason for optimism because they've done some positive things, and they've done it differently than the way they were playing before. Bigger tests are in front of them. One's Monday night, and obviously in 2 weeks will be a massive test to see if this stuff's working. But right now, 3 wins in a row, haven't trailed in these 3 games, and they're getting some production from. They're not having to rely on RJ so much, and they're good out of the gate. You can't ask for more than that right now from this club, especially what these fans and this team has been through for the last 4 months.
Absolutely. I mean, again, you can only beat who's in front of you. I know the ACC is not a very good league, and I know the 3 opponents Carolina played in the last 3 games are not very good either. But again, we talk about this a lot because some people say, well, they beat bad teams, doesn't really mean much. It's about how you do it in these games. And I think in the last 2 in particular, even go back to Syracuse, it wasn't a blowout win, but it was a game in which Carolina had some control in the second half, could never quite pull away in it, but more comfortable than we've seen this team a lot this season. So I think you have to give them credit for that. You can take stuff away from any win. I mean, again, it's something we talk about a lot, but it's the manner in which you do it. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from the UVA win today is just Carolina dominated, man, from the jump.
Let me connect a couple dots here because going back to Syracuse, the thing that really impressed me about Syracuse is when the Orange made pushes, the Tar Heels responded. The Orange made a push late in the first half at Syracuse last week, and Ian hit a 3 to kind of calm things. Late in the game, same thing. They make another push, Ian hit a 3. Today, UVA, it was a 14-3 run, Ian hits a 3. So he's stepping up, coming off the bench, making more mature plays, being a more connected player. And I asked him today, what has been the difference the last 3 games? And the one-word answer, looked me in the eyes and said, together. And I'm telling you, I wasn't going to Ian Jackson for quotes to really find out what the soul of the team was not that long ago. I think this, I know I'm veering off course here for a moment, but I think it's relevant to what we're talking about. I think the 7-game slump did him a lot of good in terms of, humbling a little bit and maybe learning to step back and take a different view of your game and all that kind of stuff. It's okay to go through stuff like that as long as you get something out of it. And I think he has. I think that's part of where this team is right now. And they're starting games well because when they come out of the locker room, there's good stuff there. There's a total understanding. There's no uncertainty. Guys now know I'm coming off the bench. I'm starting. I'm the 3. I'm not the 4 anymore. Drake doesn't have to guard a Cooper Flagg type anymore. He gets to guard an Isaac McNeely. And he doesn't have to exhaust so much on the defensive end of the court that he's got nothing left on the offensive end of the court. So they know these things. So they feel better about how the composition is being used going into games. And we've clearly seen that reflected in their play the last 2 games, getting out to massive early leads.
Yeah, no, absolutely. AJ, apologies for the little squeak we got going on in the background. We got the loudest trash cart in North America being pushed around the concourse right now. You hear that little squeak?
We're going to get criticized for bringing it up, and someone's going to say, go to your car and do it and that kind of thing. No, we're doing it here. And we got TV over there doing some of their stuff too, and they got to deal with it as well.
Yeah, got to work around it, man. We do our best. I got the heavens shining down around me. Something about these MacBook computers, these webcams, man. It's just every time I do a video in the Smith Center, it looks like God's about to open up above me and bring me up to the heavens.
Well, they do call it blue heaven, right?
Yeah, you can see the streaks over here, man. There's definitely some blue heaven shining down on me and raining down on me. But, AJ, speaking of raining down, Jalen Withers, man, you like that segue right there, don't you?
We're going to get so much crap for that. I love it. And that's what we want. That's what we want in those comments. You're going to give us crap. Give us crap. I'm cool with that.
Hey, man, bring it on, man. I'm all for it. I know you are as well. But Jalen Withers, man, another guy who was raining down threes today for North Carolina in particular. Just to read through his stat line, 16 points on the day, 5 for 8 from the floor, 4 from 6 from three-point land, 11 rebounds as well for Jay Witt, who's continuing his positive play, particularly over the last 3 games, kind of coinciding with this 3-game winning streak for North Carolina. And he's been big for Carolina, AJ. And just to run through some stats real quick, Withers in the last 3 games, so the last 3 wins for Carolina, is averaging 14.3 points on 65% shooting from the floor and 64% shooting from 3. It's also, this is from Steve Kirshner. Shout out to Steve Kirshner. This is the most he scored in a 3-game stretch at North Carolina, and his second double-double of the season today and his 5th of his Carolina career, man. So he's a guy that this 3-game winning streak for North Carolina kind of coincides with his positive performances. And I'm not really surprised that Carolina looks better offensively when they have a stretch 4 like him, that it just changes the floor, particularly offensively for Carolina, because it stretches it and it makes defenses guard your 4 a lot more honestly from the outside, which again just opens up this court for North Carolina, gives the guards more space to get into the lane and dish. We've seen Lubin be a lot more productive over the last few weeks as well when he was inserted into the lineup. But man, it's the Jay Witt story has been cool the last 3 weeks. We were joking in the press room, but like he got poked in the eye before the Syracuse game by Cade Tyson, and it was almost like that was the poke that he needed to get the season going because he hasn't looked back since. So another really impressive performance from Jay Witt tonight, probably his most impressive of the season. Really, I thought he was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, if this keeps up, Cade Tyson will earn his letter just from poking Jay Witt in the eye that day. And Hubert joked last week, maybe we should ask him. Well, it depends on how things go Monday night. Maybe Cade should just poke everybody else in the eye.
Why not?
Yeah, they can go. RJ might need it right now because he struggled the last couple of games. Jay Witt's a great story. Here's a guy who I think he should watch his interviews because he's thoughtful. He just doesn't spew the company line. He just doesn't throw cliches out there. He's a pretty thoughtful guy, and he's a college graduate. He's working on a master's, so he's a smart dude. And I like how he handles some other people's questions today about what he went through. And we've articulated the minutes. I've put him in lots of stuff lately. I've lined up the minutes the other day in something that I wrote. There were 2 consecutive games of 3 minutes. There was a 4-minute in there, 6 minutes. There were 4 out of 6 games he didn't play in the second half. Played 6 minutes against Pitt, and then he starts against Clemson. And he started the last 4 games now. And the Clemson game was a tough assignment. The team just played like crap. That wasn't on Jay Witt. That was collective. Since then, his ability to hit the 3, I'm going to get in so much trouble for this. Some of us are joking about people saying, he's Jalen Manic. Okay, I'm not calling him that at all. It's like, so people are saying on boards and elsewhere, it's Jalen Manic. And we're joking about that because it's funny. But the fact that he's hitting some of those dagger type 3s, and he looks over to the bench and is barking and syringe and those things. Did it with the Syracuse fans last week. I asked Drake, started asking Drake about it today, and he just started smiling. That's his game. I asked Ian, I said, look, you don't want to get a technical foul from him. And that was probably a Bush League call, to be honest with you, because that stuff happens. It's part of the game. You got to let guys do what they do. He didn't physically hit anybody, so let him do that. But they love that. They say that's Jay Witt being Jay Witt. He needs to have all that come out. He wasn't playing enough before for stuff to sort of start at his toes and work their way up through here and just kind of mushroom out. Now he's playing a lot, so all that energy and juice and a little bit of that fanny smacker and that screw you is coming out in him. It's something that they have dearly missed this year. And it's like a guy, I think Adam asked Hubert, is he sort of reinvented or refound himself, discovered his old self? Because at Louisville, he did this sometimes. They thought they were going to get more of it here. But it's been a long, bumpy, challenging road for Jay Witt here at North Carolina. And there is a measure of satisfaction he's taking with where things are. He's not an I told you so guy, at least not now, but there's probably a little of I told you so going on in his head because he can hit the three. Here's a sneaky little stat for you, Jacob. Before the Syracuse game, he was Carolina's leading three-point shooter. So that's before these last three. He's their leading three-point shooter through the season. And here's a guy who missed that three last year against Alabama. I talked to him in October about that three and how he was fueled every day by it. And he read every comment in social media. And he took every one of those comments and, like with a syringe, just stuck it in himself for fuel. And I asked him today. I haven't brought up that conversation for 4.5, 5 months, whatever it was. I asked him today. I may have done it in Lawrence because he hit a bunch of threes at Kansas. I may have done it that night. But I said, remember that conversation back in October about the threes? And he like, oh, yeah. Like he hadn't thought about it much either. That's what I asked him. Is there some satisfaction? You are showing everybody you can shoot three. He was a 41% shooter from three-point range at Louisville. 96 attempts the year before he came to Carolina. So you're seeing a guy who's playing probably with the most confidence he ever has, but also I think he's playing free. He's not inhibited at all. He's got nothing to lose at this point. He just went through a stretch in January. He played 3 minutes. He's got nothing to lose. Got a handful of games left in his college career. Let it all out there. And you're seeing the team rallying around him. You're seeing him get the guys to talk. It's like an unearthing of something that maybe nobody around here really knew for sure was there. They thought maybe it could be, but now they're seeing it come to life. It's been 3 games. They haven't been great teams. He's going to be very challenged Monday night with the very long lineup at Florida State. And 3 games is just 3 games. But they didn't have these 3 games before from him, and they have it now. And as Hubert said tonight when he was asked by the great Pat Welter, who was awesome, when he asked him about, why now? Why does it take so long? Hubert's like, who cares? This is what we're doing now. And I thought that was a great answer. I would have liked, seasons are seasons. We always talk about process. Things take a while. That's why the season's 4.5 months long before you get to the postseason. But, yeah, who cares? Jay Witt has found himself. This team has found themselves doing things that they feel good about. It's the right way for them to play with a bigger lineup and more balance and more fluidity. They're all talking about it. Just go listen to player interviews. They don't get nearly as many views as Hubert does. Go listen to the players talk about it. I'm just sitting here basically saying what they've said. And they know better because they're the players. And they understand it. So Jay Witt is a guy that they look at and say, my God, look at what he's doing. He's lifting everybody up. He's making everybody feel better. And what he's also done is they've had 2 straight games now where RJ has shot like crap from the field.
I know.
And they've blown out ACC opponents. They've blown out a rival, and they've blown out a program that has been a nemesis for the last decade plus. I'd say it's growth. Jay Witt is a sign of growth. The way they're starting games is a sign of growth. The fact that Hubert basically will not even acknowledge the fact he had a 4-guard lineup before. And then even when they were quote unquote big, Drake was at the 4, which he should never play the 4. I think that they feel really good about where things are going right now. And Jay Witt, to me, is the poster child for it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I couldn't have said it any better, really. He's been fantastic. And from a Carolina perspective, long may it continue, because you're right, it has kind of galvanized the team a little bit. And like we've talked about this year, it just feels like at times, many a times this year, you're like, man, if this team just had a 4 who could just be somewhat consistent from the outside offensively, I think it just changes the dynamic of this team. It's a shame that it took kind of this late for, Witt to blossom like he has recently. But again, you'd rather him blossom than not blossom. So who cares about the time period, I guess.
You want to know an effect of Jay Witt being out there hitting shots is look at Lubin. Lubin has had scoring bunches the last few games because he's in a lot of one-on-one situations. He's really good at getting a guy on his hip. Watch his footwork. If you're a young basketball player and you're big and you want to learn how to play down there, I said this before the season even started. The thing that struck me the most about his film at Vanderbilt was how economical he is in his movement. And you see that now. And now he can either screen and beat a guy to the rim, and there's nobody else there because they don't have to worry about 4 guards or the team that's not shooting well from the perimeter. He's able to have ISO situations where he just has to beat one guy who can go. He's also getting some putbacks now because you have to lay a body on Jay Witt. So that's one less dude either boxing out Lubin or whatever the case may be. Sometimes there were multiple guys boxing out the 5 in the past. So they're hitting the offensive boards better now, and it's a result of having Jay Witt out there. So Venon Lubin is benefiting from Jay Witt being out there. Jalen Washington has as well. And I just think that the snapshot of the last 8 days has been a phenomenal thing for this team because honestly, none of us saw it coming. None of us saw Hubert changing things up. None of us saw this team rebounding from Clemson, and we're going to do a daily drop about that. But they have, and they're different. This is a different group than it was when they escaped Pittsburgh here 2 weeks ago. There's a lot of differences, and it goes to Jay. I think Jay Witt is the first part of that, but there are a lot of other things.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I think you're 100% right about that. But real quickly before we head out, let's talk about what this means. Quick turnaround Monday night. UNC in Tallahassee, 2-3 in the last 5 games down there. It's always been it's been a tricky place for Carolina to go and get wins. I know it's not a vintage FSU team, and it's not a vintage Carolina team this year either. But at the same time, quick turnaround for Florida State as well. They lost by 8 at Louisville earlier today, so they'll have to come back home and prepare for North Carolina, just like North Carolina have to, pack up and head to Tallahassee in a couple days. So again, I think we circled that one. We talked about it in our show earlier this week about that really being kind of the litmus test with this team. All right, get through this 3-game stretch. If you can you already took care of Syracuse, you routed State, really handled Virginia impressively. If you can go down to Florida State after a quick turnaround, albeit not a great Florida State team, and get that win on the road less than 48 hours later, I think maybe you can start, and some fans I think maybe will start believing a little bit that, okay, maybe this team can turn a corner. And AJ, that's all you can really ask for this team. We got that Duke game circled on the schedule as well. If this team can go into that game having won all the games before that, it just completely changes the dynamic, gives this team more confidence, and in that rivalry, you never know what can happen. So I think for Carolina's case, it's been a really good 3-game stretch, a really good 2-game stretch in particular with how they beat State and Virginia. Obviously, the winning margin helps Carolina's net rating a little bit too. So, but I'm very intrigued to see what happens on Monday night. And if Carolina can come out with a win down there, and more so come out with a more comfortable and controlled win like we've seen over these last 2 games in particular, I think it'll really show some positive signs for this North Carolina team. But, man, it's going to be a tough one. Make no mistakes about it.
It's going to be a very difficult game. Florida State's the second longest team in college basketball behind Duke. Leonard's always had long guys. That's a tough place to play when people are there. I've been there a lot, and I'll be there Monday night, and the stands go a little bit more like this, a little bit more like Castle Coliseum. The fans can be on top of you somewhat. They always get a great crowd when Carolina's there. They're always ready to go when Carolina's there, the fans, and generally the team is as well. And usually Leonard has good teams. I don't know if this is a good team, but it's not a bad team. I mean, they're better than Syracuse, NC State, or Virginia. I would say significantly, but maybe a healthy notch or 2 better than those teams. And it's also, I think, the next to last home game for Leonard Hamilton. And he's got Carolina in town. So they'll be ready to go. They were getting blown out by Louisville today and came back and made a game of it. At least they didn't, it was respectable. I think the final margin was 7. This is a team that's played really well at times, and then they haven't. Sometimes they lay giant eggs too. The whole of the Carolina season we've seen before, I have a hard time seeing that club go in and winning in Tallahassee. I just think there are too many things there. However, where the group is now, if you do the who cares mindset of Hubert Davis and you just focus on the recent snapshot, they've got a pretty good chance of going in there because they can score now. Remember when they were playing small? They averaged 66.5 points over a 4-game stretch. The last 3 games, they've gone 88, 97, and 81 against UVA, which plays the 356th. They're 356th in tempo or something like that in the country.
Yeah.
And they got 81 up on the board. So they're a team that can score. They have to go there and score. That puts pressure on FSU because FSU is not a very fluid offensive team. A little bit better on the glass, a little bit better defensively. That's what this team needs to do. So to make today be something more than just a really good game, and to make the NC State game Wednesday to be something more than just a really good game and these back-to-back good games, they have to validate this Monday night. And the only way the Duke game means anything other than pride, to be honest with you, is they have to win Monday night. Then they have to beat Miami. Then they have to win at Virginia Tech. They have to win these games to make the Duke game mean a lot more than just it's Duke and it's a rivalry and all that kind of stuff. If it's going to be a game that can help them get to the NCAA tournament, they must take care of business Monday night. It will be a test. You call it a litmus test. I agree. We'll find out how quickly they can turn around. 2 weeks ago, they had the quick turnaround, went to Clemson. They stunk. It was their worst game of the year. They did not have any juice at all that night. Clemson's better than FSU. But the same thing can occur. It's a further trip. It's a club that's probably not going to get their attention as much as a Clemson would under these conditions. Or maybe they do. Or maybe they're not worried about it. They said the other night they were pretty fired up because it was state. A couple of the guys said that. Today they never mentioned UVA. They were talking about them. So that might be really good because don't worry so much about FSU. Just be you, be what you've been. Try to connect it to another game. And if they do that, they can get a win. So what this means is what we've said. It will mean a lot more Monday night if they get a win. And when you and I or Bryant and I or Chelsea and I come on here and do 3 things, if we're talking about a similar type performance, then the what this means question takes on a much bigger answer of, okay, I think this is who this team is starting to be now. But we got 2 more days to wait to be able to actually do that.
Yeah, we'll see. Just keep racking up the wins for your North Carolina. I mean, a lot of things that are, not in your control because how the season's gone, but what you can control now is just winning games. And again, see what happens when you get to that Duke game. Because I do think if Carolina can go in there on a bit of a hot streak, then again, you just never know what can happen because of
Make it
what
matter.
the rivalry is. Yeah, it's a good point.
Make the game matter. But you got to take care of business to make it matter.
Absolutely. Yeah. One game at a time. I think that's North Carolina's perspective. And it feels like they're, starting to embrace that a little bit. But again, big test awaits on Monday night and we'll see what happens. I think it's a good place to go. We're going to do a drop after this real quick too. Just tying a few things, looking back at that Clemson game and how maybe the team has kind of responded and been galvanized a little bit since then. So that'll be coming out on Sunday night, I believe.
Yeah. I got some good stuff from some guys tonight and Hubert.
Yeah.
Hubert gave a great answer about that. So we'll hit on that with the next drop.
Yeah, that'll be coming soon, too. So stay tuned for that on Sunday. But make sure you like the video here. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Again, trying to get to 20K. Links in the description for Twitter and Facebook. Go over to both of those and follow us. It'll be much appreciated. Everybody, head on over to TargetIllustrated.com too. You can sign up for just $8.33 a month. We'd love for you to do so. You get a lot of awesome premium extra content, access to our premium message board. So big incentives for doing that, for paying your hard-earned money every month. But if you don't want to do that, you can shoot us a Venmo. That link's in the description below. Again, all that goes back into running the business and paying for AJ's plane ticket to Tallahassee because we don't want him having to drive or walk down there, God forbid. So got to pay the bills somehow.
I still got to get a car rental. I haven't done that yet.
Oh, yeah,
Remind me to text my wife to have her get my car for me.
I will, man. We got some homework to do, which is another reason we got to get on out of here. But again, we appreciate you guys watching. As always, like the video below if you enjoyed the win, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.